In the previous video, the protagonist found herself cornered by her supposed friends when she encountered them at the hotel reception, where she had taken shelter from the rain. The women wanted to know about the boyfriend that Hari's best friend had mentioned. Just as she was about to tell the truth, President Kang appeared, calling her love, and introduced himself to her friends as her boyfriend. President Kang had discovered the protagonist's whereabouts by calling her phone, which was answered by the hotel receptionist. Upon arriving, he overheard the three women putting Hari in a tough spot and quickly decided to act as her boyfriend. Following President Kang's grand entrance, URA suggested they all have dinner together, which Taemu readily accepted. During the meal, he made an effort to convince the women that he and Hari were indeed a couple. Although Hari initially didn't want to perpetuate the lie, she changed her mind after hearing the women speak ill of her. We know that URA's insecurity stems from her jealousy over Minwoo's feelings for the protagonist. Imagine her reaction upon discovering that Hari's new boyfriend was the president of the company where she worked. Her jealousy turned into envy. Later, the fake couple had to share a room to avoid raising suspicions. The next day, Taemu sent a rack of clothes for Hari to choose from, as it would be suspicious for her to wear the same outfit as the day before. Meanwhile, young Seo woke up in Sunghoon's apartment, unable to remember what happened the previous night. Her only memory was that they kissed and then went to his place, but everything else was a blur. Embarrassed and not wanting to cross the boundaries he had set, she asked him to forget everything that happened and left before Mr. Cha could express his feelings. Back to the protagonist, Minwoo joined the group for lunch. After the meal, President Kang received a call about returning to the company to handle some matters. However, upon hearing Minwoo ask Hari to stay and not accompany Taemu, President Kang decided to rearrange his schedule to stay with them. Later, they spent the rest of the day on a boat owned by Taemu's grandfather. At one point, Minwoo had a private conversation with President Kang, questioning why he had chosen Hari among so many options that were surely more suitable for him. President Kang's response was applause-worthy, as he told Minwoo not to dare say that the protagonist wasn't suitable for him due to her lack of wealth or status, as she was perfect just as she was. Tension between the two began to build, especially after the girls suggested a fishing competition, leading the men to compete over who could catch more fish. Unfortunately, the fun was cut short when Hari began feeling unwell, prompting them to return to shore and for President Kang to take her to the hospital. Later, near Hari's home, Taemu apologized for being selfish and focusing too much on competing with Minwoo, failing to notice her discomfort. Taking advantage of the moment, Taemu decided it was time to confess his feelings to Hari, adding that although she might be surprised, she could take all the time she needed to respond. However, the next day, President Kang grew anxious from not receiving a response from the protagonist, and this continued for several days. That night, young Seo and Sunghoon crossed paths in the condominium parking lot, where he took the opportunity to express his feelings, explaining that he felt the same way since he first saw her. Their conversation ended at Mr. Cha's house, where young Seo confessed that her behavior was due to not remembering the night they spent together. In response, he assured her that this time, he wouldn't let her forget. Returning to the protagonist, a week after Taemu's confession, she still hadn't responded. Hari was selected to film a company advertising campaign. Upon seeing the cast, Taemu decided to visit the location to watch her from a distance. However, he couldn't contain his jealousy when he saw the protagonist with Minwoo. Noticing his presence, Hari accidentally stained her clothes, prompting a break so she could clean up in the restroom. Upon exiting, she encountered Taemu. Both were tense in each other's presence, and the situation grew more chaotic when Sunghoon informed President Kang that his grandfather was approaching and looking for him. Taemu quickly took Hari's hand and led her elsewhere. This turned out to be beneficial, as it allowed them to talk more openly. Despite sharing a kiss, Hari told him to return to blind dates, believing everyone would find it strange for him to date an employee. Taemu's response was that he didn't care, he would keep asking her out until she was willing to try. This led to them dining together, as President Kang insisted she owed him for kissing him without intending to get seriously involved. As an alternative, he suggested they kiss again, but Hari dismissed the idea. However, at the end of the dinner, instead of the protagonist paying as agreed, he covered the expenses, opening the door for them to go out together once more for her to make it up to him. It's becoming clear that Hari is also developing feelings for Tae-moo, as her heart races whenever she sees him. Meanwhile, Yura's jealousy over Min-woo's feelings for Hari continues to grow. Her insecurity intensifies after reading comments on the viral advertising video, where many remarked that the two look like a couple. In the next scene, director Jin, Young Seo's superior's mother and aunt, greeted Tae-moo's grandfather at a restaurant. Knowing that her niece had rejected his grandson, she proposed a blind date between President Kang and her daughter, Yoo-jong. Returning to the protagonist, Tae-moo asked her to spend the day with him at an amusement park as repayment, bringing them closer together. At one point, President Kang opened up while they ate corn dogs, sharing that he used to eat them with his parents and that the taste reminded him of happy moments with them. He confided that Hari was different, as she was the only one he could talk to about those he missed in a light-hearted manner. She didn't act awkward or walk on eggshells, she simply behaved normally, which comforted him. However, their outing was cut short when the protagonist had to leave to meet her parents, who had been hospitalized. Her mother had burned her arm while cooking, and her father needed emergency surgery for acute appendicitis. Of course, Tae-moo wouldn't leave Hari alone in such a situation. He ensured her parents were comfortably accommodated in the hospital, though Hari fibbed a bit about him. President Kang had to pretend to be a 40-year-old colleague of Hari's, and I'm curious how she'll untangle this lie in the future. Meanwhile, Min-woo helped out at Hari's family restaurant but accidentally dropped some dishes, cutting his finger in the process. Ha-min told him there were bandages in the protagonist's room, and while retrieving them, he found the contract Hari had signed with Tae-moo to pretend to be his girlfriend. With his mind racing, Min-woo left the restaurant and, after seeing President Kang talking to the protagonist and asking for a kiss, decided he had to free her from this situation. He approached and punched Tae-moo in the face. Confused by the altercation, the protagonist separated the two and asked President Kang to head home safely while she returned Min-woo to the restaurant. There, Hari explained to him that it was none of his business whether she was in a fake relationship with the president or not, it was her concern alone. She added that Min-woo should apologize to Tae-moo for his behavior when they next met. The following day, Young Seo visited President Kang's company and delivered something she had prepared for Sung-hoon to share with the team. They parted with a kiss, which Tae-moo witnessed. Although President Kang had been tricked by Young Seo regarding the blind date, he was only upset that Mr. Cha hadn't told him, as they were best friends and should share such things. A bigger issue soon arose for Tae-moo. His grandfather accepted director Jin's proposal and arranged a date between his grandson and her daughter. He informed President Kang about it, advising him to go so things wouldn't worsen for him. Meanwhile, Hari participated in a company team-building event, where the winning team would receive a trophy and dinner with Tae-moo. Despite injuring her wrist during a match, she didn't let it affect her and gave her all to win, driven by jealousy at the thought of her beloved with another woman. In the end, the protagonist achieved her goal, but when she went to celebrate with her team, she was disappointed to learn that President Kang wouldn't attend due to a scheduled date with another woman. After a few drinks, acting on impulse, Hari mustered the courage to call Tae-moo from a taxi, asking him to leave the date because she was in love with him. She accepted his previous proposal, regardless of what others might think. In reality, President Kang hadn't gone on the date, he sent Sung-hoon in his place and was waiting outside Hari's house. Due to traffic, it took her a while to arrive, so they both got out of their cars and met on a bridge, where they officially became a couple. The next day, Tae-moo picked Hari up for a date before work. They visited a popular local restaurant, where he prepared a lovely breakfast for her and noticed she was wearing mismatched shoes. He found it endearing, as Hari had gotten ready so quickly to see him that she hadn't noticed the detail. As a result, she received a gift at her office, a delivery of a beautiful new pair of heels from her boyfriend, sparking curiosity among her colleagues. However, Hari brushed it off, saying it was just Young Seo playing a prank on her. Meanwhile, Taemoo and Sunghoon embarked on a business trip abroad. There, we discovered that Mr. Cha had gotten into a predicament. Yoo-jong wasn't bothered by President Kang's absence at the blind date. Instead, she developed a crush on the secretary and wouldn't stop messaging him. Despite Sunghoon making it clear he had a girlfriend and no interest in her, Yoo-jong wasn't deterred. Upon leaving her company, she encountered Young Seo and claimed to be dating someone. Responding to the provocation, Young Seo also said she was dating, unaware that they were referring to the same person. The next day, Hari and Min-woo were set to participate in an interview together, as their video had been a social media hit. Before the recording, Min-woo apologized for his previous behavior, and the protagonist revealed that she and President Kang were now dating. She added that, as he had mentioned before, there was a good chance it might not work out, but they were willing to try. That night, Sunghoon faced his problem when he arrived home to find Yoo-jong at his door, slightly intoxicated. He helped her recover and sent her on her way, but in the process, he cancelled plans with his girlfriend, claiming President Kang needed his help at home. We know that starting a lie rarely ends well. Meanwhile, the main couple grew closer, enjoying the early stages of their relationship. The next day, the cousins discussed relationships, which was odd given their mutual dislike. However, Yoo-jong insisted Young Seo listen, as she had no friends. Yoo-jong shared her romantic disappointments and rejections. Out of pity, I believe, her cousin encouraged her to pursue the man, explaining that persistence had helped her secure her current boyfriend. I felt sorry for Young Seo, as she had no idea who the man was. In the next scene, Ura and Min-woo's relationship began to crumble once more, and this time, it might be for good. Ura wanted them to meet her parents over the weekend, believing they were ready to set a wedding date. However, Min-woo responded that he wasn't prepared for such a commitment and postponed the meeting with her parents. Now, let's return to President Kang's company, where Yoo-jong once again made a blunder. She visited to apologize for her actions the previous night. By speaking too much, she revealed to the arriving grandfather that Taemoo hadn't shown up for the date. She quickly left to let them sort it out. In the elevator, while scolding his grandsons, the elder felt his stomach acting up, prompting him to ask Taemoo to stop on the next floor, which happened to be Hari's. Meanwhile, Hari arrived at the office to see her leaders rushing into the men's restroom. Curious about the commotion, she followed them, only for them to rush out, inadvertently knocking her to the ground. As she composed herself to get up, she overheard President Kang and his grandfather and quickly hid in a restroom stall. However, she left her shoe outside, prompting the elder to knock on the stall, demanding to know why a woman was in the men's restroom. With no other choice, Hari emerged, once again finding herself in an awkward situation with Taemoo's grandfather, further souring his opinion of her. We shouldn't forget that this time, the awkward situation arose due to the team leaders. Having put the protagonist in a difficult position, they decided to be honest and reveal their relationship. In fact, the man had mistakenly posted a message meant for his beloved in the team group, sparking the whole commotion. To appease Mr. Daegu, Hari wrote an apology letter, but it didn't help much, as he still complained about her to President Kang. To make up for the embarrassment, the couple invited the team out for drinks that night, covering the expenses. By chance, they ran into Taemoo in the elevator, and he joined them. To help everyone relax around the president, the team leaders prepared a soju bomb, leaving the 4 members tipsy, except for President Kang. Ms. Kim even noticed Hari and Taemoo holding hands under the table. Although it wasn't a lie, the leaders pretended she was talking nonsense, as she also began mentioning their secret workplace relationship. Meanwhile, young Seo was once again summoned by her cousin to discuss relationships. However, Sung-hoon was waiting for her at a restaurant to introduce her to his mother. When she arrived, Yoo-jung accompanied her, not wanting to be alone. At that moment, the damage was done. The two discovered they were in love with the same man, with his mother caught in the middle of the situation. Young Seo left the establishment, upset, and told Sung-hoon he could have informed her from the start. Things worsened when she realized he had lied about who was at his apartment. Young Seo advised Sung-hoon to start standing up for himself regarding President Kang's requests, rather than simply accepting them. With that, she left. Returning to the drinking session, the night ended after Ms. Kim insisted on the story of Tae-moo and the protagonist holding hands. This left the couple alone outside the establishment, just as the elder passed by. Curious about the woman his grandson was secretly seeing, he got out of the car and approached them. Imagine his surprise upon discovering it was Hari. Fortunately, the rest of the team returned, having forgotten their phones inside. This allowed President Kang to explain that they weren't on a date but rather at a colleague's drinking session. At home, Tae-moo faced his grandfather's interrogation. The elder stated he knew his grandson was seeing someone and hoped he wasn't afraid to introduce her for fear of disapproval. This seemed to reassure President Kang, who replied that he would introduce her soon, needing just a bit more time. What did you think of these episodes? I hope you enjoyed the summary. Leave your suggestions in the comments and subscribe. If you liked the video, please like and share it to help me out. See you next time.